The transport ship broke through the atmosphere of Vexor Prime, and Jiho Park pressed his face against the window. Below him, the military moon spread out like a massive fortress. Metal buildings stretched as far as he could see. Training grounds glowed with blue and red lights. Ships moved in perfect formations across the dark sky. This was the Galactic Defense Academy, the most famous military school in the galaxy. Soldiers from 100 different worlds trained here. And now, for the first time in history, humans were joining them. Jiho looked at his rifle. The metal was dark and worn. He had carried this weapon through 3 years of service in the Korean Special Forces. It had saved his life more times than he could count. The weight felt right in his hands, but here, surrounded by alien technology, it suddenly looked very old. Beside him, Narration cleaned her sniper rifle for the 10th time. Her hands moved with practiced ease, checking each part. She was quiet, as always, but Jiho could see the worry in her eyes. Across from them, Taehyung Kang grinned and adjusted his heavy automatic rifle. Nothing ever seemed to bother him. Ji-won Choi sat in the corner, reading technical manuals on her datapad, trying to learn everything she could about alien weapon systems. They were Earth's first team. 4 soldiers sent to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. The ship landed with a soft thump. The doors opened and heat washed over them. Vexor Prime was hot, much hotter than Earth. Jiho led his team down the ramp and stopped. The landing area was huge. Hundreds of cadets moved in organized groups. But these were not human cadets. A creature with 4 arms and armor like a beetle walked past. It stood 7 feet tall and carried a weapon that hummed with blue energy. Another alien floated by, its body glowing with soft light. A third looked like a walking pile of rocks, each step shaking the ground, and they were all staring at the humans. Jiho kept his face calm. He had trained for this. They all had. Earth had prepared them for the technology gap, for the culture shock, for the feeling of being very small and very young in a very old galaxy, but nothing quite prepared you for the reality of it. A tall alien in uniform approached them. His skin was gray, his eyes were large and yellow, and he carried himself with authority. This had to be one of the instructors. "Human cadets," the alien said through a translator device. "I am Drill Sergeant Korvath. Follow me to the assembly hall. The commandant wishes to address all new recruits." They followed him through wide corridors filled with technology Jiho did not understand. Holographic displays floated in the air. Robots cleaned the floors. The walls themselves seemed to glow with power. Everything was clean, efficient, and advanced beyond anything on Earth. The assembly hall was enormous. Thousands of cadets filled the seats. The humans were led to a section near the front. As they walked, Jiho heard the whispers. The aliens were not trying to be quiet. "Those are the humans? So small. Look at their weapons. Are those actual bullets? How primitive." Jiho kept walking. Beside him, Taehyung's easy smile had frozen in place. Nari's jaw was tight. Only Ji-won seemed unbothered, her eyes scanning the technology around them with professional interest. They took their seats. The commandant walked onto the stage. He was ancient, his species unknown to Jiho, his body covered in ceremonial armor that probably cost more than everything Earth had sent to space. "Welcome, cadets," Commandant Thexal said. His voice filled the hall without speakers, some kind of technology Jiho could not identify. "You represent the finest warriors from across the galaxy. You are here to learn, to train, and to prove yourselves worthy of defending civilized space." He began introducing the various species. The Krellians, who had conquered 50 worlds before joining the Council. The Etherians, who had mastered thought-controlled weapons. The Ergothians, whose bodies were nearly indestructible. Each species stood when called, their weapons gleaming with advanced technology. Then the Commandant paused. "And finally, we welcome our newest members to the galactic community. From the planet Earth, we have our first human cadets." Jiho stood. His team stood with him. The hall erupted in whispers and a few open laughs. "Present your weapons for inspection," the Commandant said. This was standard procedure. Each species showed their primary weapons. But when Jiho held up his rifle, the laughter grew louder. A massive 4-armed alien stood up. This was Vextor, a Krellian warrior. His voice boomed across the hall. "They bring tubes that spit metal? Are we training warriors or collecting antiques?" The hall filled with laughter. Other cadets joined in the mockery. A glowing alien drifted closer. "Lyrax, an Etherian. She examined Nari's rifle with obvious amusement. Her voice entered their minds through telepathy. How interesting. It requires manual aiming, and physical projectiles, and chemical reactions to fire. Like something from a museum. Even Drill Sergeant Korvath looked concerned. He took Jiho's rifle and examined it. Cadet Park, this weapon fires at 950 meters per second. My sidearm fires at 0.3 light speed. Do you understand the difference? Jiho met his eyes. Yes, Sergeant. I understand. But this weapon hits what I aim at. A boulder-like alien named Brax laughed. The sound rumbled through the hall. Confidence. I like this tiny human. Tomorrow we test on the range. Let us see if your toy can even scratch the practice targets. The assembly ended. The cadets filed out, still laughing and whispering about the primitive humans. Jiho led his team to their assigned barracks in silence. The barracks were clean and functional. Each team had their own section. But as soon as the humans entered their area, the problems started. Someone had programmed the food machine to only produce what they called Stone Age rations. Another cadet made loud caveman noises as he walked past. A group of aliens stood nearby making exaggerated motions of loading a bow and arrow. Taehyung's smile was gone now. He sat on his bunk and cleaned his weapon with sharp, angry movements. Nari lay on her bed staring at the ceiling. Jiwon worked on her equipment, but her movements were tense. Jiho gathered them in a corner where they could speak privately. Listen to me, he said quietly. This is exactly what we expected. They see us as primitive. They see our weapons as toys. Let them think that. For how long? Jiwon asked. We cannot let them treat us like this. Until tomorrow, Jiho said. Tomorrow on the range we show them what humans can do. Earth sent us here for a reason. The Council is watching. Our people are watching. We prove ourselves with actions, not words. Nari sat up. And if we fail? Jiho checked his rifle one more time. The metal was cold and familiar in his hands. We will not fail. We have trained our entire lives for this. They have computers to aim for them. We have ourselves. Tomorrow they will learn what that means. That night, while the alien cadets celebrated and boasted about their superior weapons, the four humans cleaned their rifles in silence. They checked every part, every spring, every mechanism. They loaded their magazines with care. They prepared like soldiers who knew that tomorrow would change everything. Outside the barracks, Vexor Prime glowed with the lights of 1,000 training facilities. Somewhere in that sprawling complex was a firing range, and tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that sometimes the oldest weapons in the right hands were still the most dangerous. Morning came too early. Jiho woke before the alarm, his body still adjusted to Earth time. The barracks were quiet. Most alien cadets were still sleeping, confident in their superior technology, but Jiho and his team were already up, performing final weapons checks. The firing range was 5 kilometers of carefully designed terrain. It could create any battlefield scenario in the galaxy, hard light projections mixed with physical obstacles to make realistic targets. Observation platforms surrounded the range, already filling with cadets who wanted to watch the humans fail. Jiho stood at the edge of the range and looked across the distance. He could see targets at various ranges. 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 1,500 meters, 2,000 meters. For most species with their energy weapons and computer-assisted aiming, these were easy shots. For humans with ballistic weapons, it would be much harder. The observation platforms were packed now. Hundreds of alien cadets sat watching. Some were eating food and treating this like entertainment. Others were placing bets. Jiho heard fragments of conversation carried on the wind. I bet they cannot hit past 500 meters. I bet they miss everything. This will be over quickly. Then we can begin real training. Commandant Thexel stood in the main observation tower. His voice came through speakers across the range. Today we test basic marksmanship. Each species will demonstrate their weapons capabilities. Static targets, moving targets, reactive fire drills, and combined tactics. Your performance establishes your training baseline. Krellian team, you may begin. Vextor led his team onto the range. The 4 Krellians moved in perfect formation, their plasma rifles humming with deadly energy. At 2,000 meters, they opened fire. Bolts of blue plasma streaked across the range faster than eyes could follow. The targets exploded in spectacular bursts of light and heat. The armored plates melted like butter. The crowd cheered. Vextor raised all 4 arms in triumph. His scores appeared on the massive display screens. 96% accuracy at all ranges. Impressive by any standard. Next came the Etherians. Lyrax and her team demonstrated weapons that responded to thought alone. They did not even appear to aim. Their neural interfaces calculated everything instantly. Energy beams struck targets with perfect precision. The beams were invisible until they hit, leaving no trace of their passage through air. Lyrax's telepathic voice reached everyone. 98.7% accuracy. As expected, the Ergothians followed. Brax fired his gravitic disruptor. The weapon created visible ripples in space itself. Targets did not just break, they crumpled like paper before exploding. The destructive power was absolute. Entire fortified positions simply ceased to exist. Species after species demonstrated their weapons. Particle beams that moved at near light speed, micro-missiles that could track targets around corners, sonic disruptors that shattered armor with sound waves, molecular destabilizers that made matter fall apart. Each demonstration was more impressive than the last. The humans watched it all in silence. Taehyung stopped smiling. Nari's expression was unreadable. Jiwon took mental notes on each weapon system. Jiho simply waited, his rifle resting against his shoulder. His breathing calm and steady. Finally, Drill Sergeant Korvath called out, "Next!" Human contingent. His tone suggested this was just a formality before moving on to real training. The laughter started immediately. Aliens in the observation platforms pointed and whispered. Some made exaggerated gestures of throwing rocks. The humans walked onto the range and the mockery grew louder. Jiho ignored it all. He had heard worse before. In war, enemy soldiers tried to break your concentration with insults and threats. This was no different. He led his team to their firing positions and gave them a simple nod. They knew what to do. Each human took their assigned lane. They moved with calm efficiency. No wasted motion, no dramatic gestures. Jiho settled into his shooting stance. Feet shoulder-width apart, body angled, weapon tucked firmly into his shoulder. This was a position he had held 10,000 times before. Beside him, Nari dropped to a prone position. Her rifle's bipod deployed smoothly. She adjusted her body position, getting comfortable for the long shots. Taehyung checked his drum magazine one final time. Jiwon made minor adjustments to her scope. Commandant Thexol raised his hand. "You may begin when ready." Jiho did not rush. He controlled his breathing. In, out, in, out. His heart rate slowed. He found the natural pause between heartbeats, the moment when his body was most still. The target at 500 meters appeared in his sight. He applied steady pressure to the trigger. Crack. The sound was sharp and distinctive. Not the whisper of energy weapons, but something older and more primal. A chemical explosion driving metal downrange at supersonic speed. The 500-meter target registered a perfect center mass hit. The laughter in the observation platforms faltered slightly. Crack, crack, crack. 3 more rounds. 3 more perfect hits. The 1,000-meter target. Dead center. The 1,500-meter target. Center mass. Jiho's breathing never changed. His movements were smooth and mechanical. Nari fired. Her rifle produced a deeper, heavier sound. The round traveled through the air for what seemed like an eternity. Then the 1,500-meter target lit up. Perfect hit. Vextor stood up in the observation platform. "Lucky shots," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. The static target drill continued. Each human fired methodically. No rushing, no showing off. Just steady professional marksmanship. Jiho hit every target from 500 to 2,000 meters. Nari specialized in the long shots. Hitting targets other species needed computers to even see clearly. The observation platforms grew quieter with each shot. The aliens had expected failure. They had expected the humans to struggle, to miss, to prove that their primitive weapons were inadequate. Instead, they were watching something they did not quite understand. A Xanthari instructor pulled up data on her tablet. Her eyes widened. She called to Commandant Thexol. "Sir, the projectile velocities are concerning. These rounds are traveling at 700 to 900 meters per second. The kinetic energy is tremendous, and they are achieving this with simple chemical reactions." Another instructor studied the footage. That last shot, the one at 1,500 meters, the target was not stationary. There was a crosswind of 15 kilometers per hour. She compensated for wind, gravity, air pressure, even planetary rotation, without a computer. How is this possible? The moving target drill began. Holographic enemies sprinted across the range at various speeds and distances. The alien weapons excelled here. Their targeting computers calculated intercept points automatically. Their near-light-speed projectiles required no lead time. The humans should have been at a massive disadvantage. Ballistic rounds traveled slower than energy beams. They curved with gravity. Wind pushed them off course. Temperature and air pressure affected their flight. Every single shot required complex calculations. But something remarkable happened. Jiho tracked a sprinting target with smooth, practiced movements. His rifle moved in steady arcs. He fired 3 times. Each round struck a different target at a different range, all moving at different speeds. His brain calculated what computers did automatically, but with an understanding that came from years of practice. Nari demonstrated something even more impressive. A target appeared at 2,400 meters, moving fast across her field of view. She took one breath, held it, and fired once. 4 full seconds passed. The round traveled through changing air currents, compensated for the planet's rotation, and struck the target perfectly in the center. She had calculated everything in seconds. Wind, elevation, target speed, bullet drop, even the Coriolis effect from planetary spin, without any computer assistance. Just training, experience, and the most advanced targeting computer in the galaxy, the human brain. The observation platforms were completely silent now. Tae-hyung stepped up for the reactive fire drill. 20 targets appeared simultaneously across the entire range. This scenario was designed for squad-level engagement, not individual shooters. It was meant to overwhelm. Tae-hyung opened fire. The sound was overwhelming, not a whisper but a continuous thunderous roar. His automatic rifle spat 750 rounds per minute. The muzzle flash lit up the range like lightning. Spent brass ejected in a golden stream, but the weapon did not wave wildly. Tae-hyung's stance absorbed the recoil. His body became part of the weapon system. Short, controlled bursts walked across the range, 2 to 3 rounds per target, adjusting for distance, adjusting for angle 45 seconds. 18 targets hit. The 2 misses were behind solid cover, physically impossible shots. The Rangemaster, a Krellian officer with 300 years of combat experience, stared at the results. His mandibles clicked in disbelief. That rate of fire, that level of control, without any targeting assistance. He looked at his own plasma rifle, suddenly uncertain. In the observation platforms, Vextor sat down slowly. His forearms hung at his sides. All his confidence from the previous day was gone. Lyrix's glow dimmed. Brax simply stared, unable to process what he had witnessed. The scores appeared on the display screens. The humans had achieved 94% accuracy across all drills. Not quite as high as the computer-assisted weapons, but close. The final drill was the combined arm simulation. This tested teamwork and tactical thinking. A fortified position stood at the far end of the range, defended by automated turrets, energy shields, and multiple hostile targets. Most teams attacked this with overwhelming firepower, plasma weapons to melt through defenses, gravitic disruptors to collapse structures, coordinated energy salvos to saturate the target area. The human team gathered in a tight circle. Jiho drew quick marks in the dirt with his finger. Nari nodded. Taehyung grinned. Jiwon checked her equipment one more time. Then they spread out across their designated zone. What followed was a display of tactics that predated spaceflight by thousands of years. Infantry doctrine refined through countless wars on Earth. Methods developed when humans had nothing but themselves to rely on. Nari moved to higher ground on the left flank. She found a position with good visibility and solid cover. Her rifle settled onto its bipod. She looked through her scope at the fortified position 1,800 meters away. The defensive sensors were scanning, looking for threats. She aimed carefully and fired. The sensor cluster exploded. The defenders were blind on that side. The automated systems began searching for the source of the attack, scanning the area where the shot came from. But Nari had fired from 1,800 meters away. By the time the sensors identified her position, she had already fired 3 more times. 2 turrets disabled. 1 viewing port shattered. The defenders were scrambling to respond to a threat they could barely see. On the right flank, Taehyung opened fire with his automatic rifle. He was not trying to penetrate the shields. That would be impossible with his weapon. Instead, he was doing something the aliens did not quite understand. Suppressive fire. controlling the battlefield. His rounds hammered against the energy barriers in steady, relentless rhythm. The defenders had to take cover. They could not move freely. They could not aim properly. The constant barrage of bullets limited their options and forced them into defensive positions. While Nari eliminated threats and Taehyung controlled the enemy's movement, Jiwon and Jiho advanced. They used terrain that energy weapon users usually ignored, small hills that blocked sensor lines of sight, shadows that confused thermal imaging, micro-terrain features that disrupted targeting locks. They moved in bounds. Jiwon ran forward while Jiho covered her. Then Jiho ran while Jiwon covered him. They communicated with hand signals, staying silent, making themselves small targets. It was a dance they had practiced 1,000 times. The instructors in the observation tower watched with growing fascination. This was not how modern combat was supposed to work. Species with advanced technology fought at range with overwhelming firepower. They did not sneak through terrain. They did not use covering fire to control enemy movement. They certainly did not risk close combat when they had weapons that could destroy targets from kilometers away. But the humans were doing exactly that. And it was working. Jiho and Jiwon reached a position 50 meters from the fortified bunker. The energy shields flickered above them, designed to stop plasma and particle beams. Jiwon pulled out what the aliens had thought was primitive equipment. Chemical explosives. Not energy-based. Not particle-accelerated. Just compounds that released energy through rapid chemical reactions. She shaped the charge carefully and placed it against the bunker door. The explosive was designed for maximum pressure wave generation. She set the timer and fell back to cover with Jiho. The explosion was loud and sharp, a pressure wave and fragmentation, not heat and light. The energy shields, designed to deflect coherent energy beams, did absolutely nothing against the physical shock wave. The bunker door blew inward with tremendous force. Jiho entered immediately, his rifle up and ready. 4 simulated targets inside. His movements were smooth and professional. Shoot, assess, move, shoot again. 4 targets, 4 rounds, 4 hits. The entire engagement from breach to clear took 8 seconds. The objective was secured. Total time from first shot to mission complete was 90 seconds. In the observation platforms, no one spoke. The silence was absolute. Alien cadets who had been laughing yesterday now sat frozen, trying to process what they had witnessed. These were not lucky shots. This was not beginners stumbling through an exercise. This was professional, practiced, lethal efficiency. Commandant Thexal stood slowly, his ancient eyes fixed on the 4 humans as they safed their weapons and formed up in a neat line. When he spoke, his voice carried across the entire range with quiet authority. In my 4 centuries of military service, I have seen weapons that could destroy planets. I have commanded fleets with firepower beyond imagination. I have witnessed technology that bends the laws of physics. He paused, letting his words sink in. But I have never seen marksmen of this caliber using unassisted targeting. I have never seen warriors who have become so skilled with their weapons that they no longer need computers to aim for them. He turned to address the assembled cadets in the observation platforms. Yesterday, many of you laughed. You mocked weapons without computers. You called them primitive toys. You assumed that more technology always means more capability. The cadets shifted uncomfortably. No one dared laugh now. But these humans have taught us something we forgot, the commandant continued. The weapon is not separate from the warrior. They do not rely on artificial intelligence to calculate their shots. They do not need targeting computers to tell them where to aim. Their minds have mastered calculations that our machines do automatically. They have achieved through training what we achieve through technology. Drill Sergeant Korvath, who had inspected their rifles with pity just 1 day ago, stepped forward. To everyone's shock, he saluted Jiho with full military honors. I owe you an apology, Cadet Park. I saw primitive weapons yesterday. I should have seen warriors who had mastered their tools completely. I was wrong. Jiho returned the salute crisply. No apology necessary, Sergeant. You judged based on what you saw. We simply showed you what those weapons can do in trained hands. Movement from the observation platforms. Vextor, the massive Krellian warrior, descended to the range floor. His 4 arms were no longer spread in arrogant triumph. He approached the human team with something like humility. I mocked your weapons, Vextor said. His translator made his voice sound careful and measured. I called them toys. I said you were bringing museum pieces to a modern war. I was incorrect. I was foolish. The admission clearly cost him pride. Krellian culture valued strength and victory above all. Admitting error was difficult. Your projectiles bypassed shields I thought were impenetrable, he continued. Your tactics exploited weaknesses I did not know existed. Your accuracy should be impossible without computer assistance, yet you achieved it. I have much to learn. Jiho met his eyes steadily. Our weapons are simple, yes, but we spent our entire lives learning to use them. On Earth we have a saying, it is better to practice one kick 10,000 times than to practice 10,000 kicks one time. Mastery comes from repetition and dedication. Lyrix floated down from the observation platform. Her luminescent skin dimmed in what might be embarrassment. Her telepathic voice was quiet and respectful. I thought your species was primitive. I thought you had nothing to teach us. I see now that you achieved mastery through a different path. Your brains calculate what our computers do. It is remarkable. It is humbling. Even Brax, the massive Ergothian, approached with surprising gentleness. His crystalline body reflected light as he moved. Strong weapons are nothing without strong warriors. I understand this now. You are strong warriors. Your weapons are tools, and you have mastered them completely. Other cadets began descending from the observation platforms. They approached the humans not with mockery, but with genuine curiosity and respect. Questions came from all directions. How do you calculate wind compensation without instruments? Can you teach me to shoot without computer assistance? That tactical movement, where did you learn those techniques? Your explosives bypassed our energy shields. How is that possible? Nari answered questions about breathing control and trigger squeeze. Taehyung demonstrated how to manage recoil through body position and stance. Jiwon explained the physics of pressure waves versus energy beams. Jiho discussed tactical movement and terrain usage. The instructors gathered in the observation tower for an emergency meeting. Instructor Velmora, the Zenthari physicist, presented her complete analysis of the human weapons performance. We must revise our entire understanding, she said, her multifaceted eyes reflecting data from multiple tablets. The humans' ballistic weapons operate on principles we abandoned 5,000 years ago. But they have developed these weapons along a completely different path than ours. Consider the implications. She brought up comparison charts. Their kinetic weapons bypass most modern defensive systems. Our shields stop energy, not mass. Their weapons have no power signature until firing, making them invisible to most sensors. They work in any environment, any atmosphere, any electromagnetic conditions. And most importantly, their operators have developed organic computing capability that rivals our artificial systems. A Korvaxian combat instructor added his perspective. There is another factor. The days following the range demonstration changed everything for the human cadets. The mockery stopped completely. The practical jokes ended. When the humans walked through the academy corridors now, other cadets moved aside with respect. Some even saluted, though that was not required between cadets. Nari found herself surrounded by aliens wanting to learn marksmanship basics. She set up impromptu classes in the training hall. A dozen different species gathered around her as she explained breathing techniques. Breathe in, breathe out. Find the pause between heartbeats. That is when you squeeze the trigger, not pull. Gentle pressure, steady control. The aliens struggled at first. They were used to computers doing everything. Point the weapon in the general direction, and the targeting system made the final adjustments. Now they had to feel their own heartbeat, control their breathing, manage their body position. It was harder than any of them expected. An Etherian cadet who had never needed to manually aim anything looked frustrated after missing 20 shots in a row. How do you make your body so still? She asked Nari. Practice, Nari said simply. I have fired over 1 million rounds in training. Each shot taught me something. You cannot learn this in one day. It takes years. Taehyung taught recoil management to Brax and several other heavy combat species. They thought their strength would make automatic weapons easy to control. They were wrong. Brax fired a human rifle on full automatic for the first time, and the barrel climbed straight up into the air. He hit nothing but sky. Strength is not enough, Taehyung explained. Your body must become part of the weapon system. Shoulders forward, elbows down, lean into the recoil. Let your skeleton absorb the force, not your muscles. Work with the weapon, not against it. Brax tried again. This time he kept his massive body positioned correctly. The burst stayed on target. His crystalline face showed something like wonder. I understand. The weapon and warrior must be one system, not two separate things. Jiwan spent her time explaining explosive principles to engineers from various species. Energy shields were everywhere in galactic warfare. They stopped plasma, lasers, particle beams, almost all modern weapons. But they did nothing against pressure waves and fragmentation. Your shields are designed for the weapons you know, she explained to a group of technical specialists. Chemical explosives create pressure waves. Physical shock. The shield does not register this as a threat because it is looking for coherent energy signatures. This creates a vulnerability you never knew existed. A Xanthari engineer studied the composition of human explosives. This is simple chemistry. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen. Nothing exotic. Nothing that requires rare elements or advanced synthesis. Yet it defeats our most sophisticated defensive technology. Sometimes simple is better, Jiwan said. Complex technology has complex failure points. Simple technology is reliable. Jiho developed an unexpected friendship with Vextor. The proud Krellian warrior had been humbled by the range demonstration, but rather than holding a grudge, he became genuinely curious about human combat doctrine. They spent evenings discussing tactics in the common area. On my world, we value direct confrontation, Vextor explained one night. The strongest warrior wins. Superior technology wins. That is how we conquered 50 worlds before joining the Council. But you humans use terrain, timing, positioning. You turn our strengths into weaknesses. Jiho nodded. Earth is a dangerous world. We did not have the strongest bodies or the fastest speed. We survived by being smart, adaptable, and persistent. We learned to use every advantage we could find. Terrain, weather, time of day, enemy psychology. Everything becomes a weapon if you know how to use it. Teach me, Vextor said. It was a request, not a demand. From a Krellian warrior, this was extraordinary. They did not ask for teaching. They conquered and took knowledge by force. But Vextor was asking, so Jiho taught him. They ran tactical drills together. Jiho showed him how to move through terrain using shadows and dead ground, how to approach targets from unexpected angles, how to make the enemy think you were in one place while attacking from another. Vextor was a fast learner, and his forearms gave him advantages in close combat that humans could never match. During a night exercise, they worked together to clear a simulated enemy position. Jiho provided covering fire while Vextor used his strength to breach a barrier. Then Vextor covered while Jiho cleared the interior with precision shots. They moved like a team that had trained together for years, not weeks. Afterwards, Vextor said, "On the range, you showed us that technology is not everything. Today you showed me that working together makes both of us stronger than either could be alone. This is wisdom my people forgot." Lyrex approached the humans one evening with a request. Her luminescent skin glowed softly in the dim light of the training facility. "May I observe your training methods?" "Not to learn shooting, but to understand your mental processes, how you calculate without computers, how your minds work," Nari agreed. The next day, Lyrax watched as Nari took a long-range shot. The Etherean used her telepathic abilities to sense the thought processes. What she discovered amazed her. "Your brain creates predictive models," Lyrax said. "You see the target, and your mind instantly calculates dozens of variables. Wind speed and direction, temperature gradients, humidity, target movement, bullet trajectory. You do this faster than our targeting computers, and you do it instinctively without conscious effort. Your species has evolved this capability through constant practice." Nari thought about this. "I suppose that is true. I do not think about the calculations anymore. I just know where to aim. It feels natural now." "That is mastery," Lyric said quietly. "When the skill becomes so ingrained that it feels like instinct. We Ethereans pride ourselves on our mental abilities, but we use technology as a crutch. You humans have developed your organic capabilities to their maximum potential. It is humbling to witness." The Academy's senior instructors held regular meetings to discuss the implications of the humans' performance. The conversations always came back to the same points. Dependence on technology, loss of fundamental skills, vulnerability to system failures. Drill Sergeant Korvath raised a concern during one meeting. If we lost power in combat, if our ships were damaged and our computers failed, most of our soldiers would be helpless. They have never fired a weapon without targeting assistance. They have never navigated without GPS. They have never communicated without translators. We have become too dependent. Commandant Thexel nodded slowly. The humans come from a world where they could not depend on anyone but themselves. No galactic community to trade with. No friendly aliens to rescue them if things went wrong. They developed self-reliance because they had no choice. And now that self-reliance makes them formidable warriors, we should incorporate human training methods into our standard curriculum. Instructor Velmora suggested. Not replace energy weapons, but supplement them with fundamental skills. Every cadet should learn to fight without computer assistance. The Commandant agreed. Make it so. And request that Earth send additional instructors. We need their expertise permanently assigned to this academy. 6 weeks after the range demonstration, a formal ceremony was held. The entire academy assembled in the main hall. Commandant Thexal stood at the podium with the 4 human cadets beside him. Today we recognize exceptional performance, the Commandant announced. These cadets arrived at our academy as students. They leave as teachers. They showed us that we had forgotten basic truths about warfare. That technology is a tool, not a replacement for skill. That the warrior matters more than the weapon. That sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. He presented each human with an instructor's badge. This was unprecedented. Cadets did not become instructors during their first training cycle, but the humans had earned it. Furthermore, the Commandant continued, I am pleased to announce that all future cadets will undergo ballistic weapons training. We are establishing a new department of fundamental combat skills, to be led by Instructor Park. The assembled cadets erupted in applause. Not mocking applause, but genuine respect. Vextor, Lyrax, Brax, and hundreds of other aliens stood and honored the humans who had taught them so much. That night, Jiho sent a message back to Earth Command. He recorded it in the privacy of his quarters, choosing his words carefully. Mission report 6 weeks after arrival. Initial contact was difficult. They viewed us as primitive. Our weapons as toys. Our presence as unnecessary. But we proved ourselves on the range and in training. They respect us now. More than respect, they want to learn from us. He paused, looking at his rifle. The same weapon they had mocked. The same weapon that had changed everything. Humanity joined the galactic community as the youngest species. We have the least advanced technology, the smallest fleet, the weakest economy, but we brought something they had forgotten. The understanding that skill and determination matter more than technology. That warriors, not weapons, win battles. They are eager to learn this lesson. He smiled slightly. Recommendation: send more instructors. Send training materials. Send whatever Earth can spare. The galaxy is ready to learn from us. And sir, tell Earth to be very proud. We did not just pass their tests. 3 months after the legendary range demonstration, the Galactic Defense Academy looked different. The changes were subtle but significant. In one training hall, cadets from 6 different species practiced breathing techniques under Nari's instruction. In another, Taehyung supervised recoil management drills. The sounds of ballistic weapons now mixed with the whisper of energy weapons across the ranges. Jiho stood in his new office, a small room with a window overlooking the main training grounds. The sign on his door read, Department of Fundamental Combat Skills. It still felt strange to see his name listed among the Academy's permanent instructors. He was only 28 years old. Most instructors here had centuries of experience, but age did not matter when you had knowledge others needed. A soft chime announced a visitor. Commandant Thexal entered. Jiho stood and saluted, but the ancient commander waved him back to his seat. Instructor Park, I wanted to speak with you about your department's progress. The Commandant settled into a chair. The reports are remarkable. Marksmanship scores have improved across all species. More importantly, cadets are learning to think independently, to solve problems without relying on computers. You and your team have exceeded every expectation. Jiho nodded. Thank you, sir. But we are only teaching basics. Skills that every human soldier learns. We are not doing anything special. That is precisely what makes it special, Thexal said. These basics, as you call them, are skills we forgot we needed. We became so advanced that we lost touch with fundamentals. You reminded us that technology enhances warriors, it does not replace them. The Commandant pulled up a holographic display. It showed deployment statistics from recent conflicts. Since your arrival, we have begun field testing human combat doctrines. Mixed teams of humans and aliens using combined tactics. The results are impressive. Mission success rates up 32%. Casualties down 28%. Equipment failure survival up 41%. Jiho studied the numbers. The equipment failure statistic is interesting. That suggests soldiers are learning to adapt when technology fails. Exactly, Thexal confirmed. Your training emphasizes what to do when primary systems are down. Manual navigation, visual identification of targets, communication through hand signals. These redundancies save lives. The commandant stood and walked to the window. Below, mixed teams of humans and aliens ran tactical drills. Vextor, now a squad leader, directed his team through terrain with hand signals. An Etherian provided sniper support using manual aim. An Ergothian breached a door with human-designed explosives. When Earth first applied to join this academy, there was significant opposition. Thexal said quietly. Many species argued that humans were too primitive, too violent, too inexperienced. I voted to accept you despite these objections. I believed Earth deserved a chance. He turned to face Jiho. I was right to vote yes, but my reasoning was wrong. I thought we would teach you. I thought you would learn our ways and eventually contribute. Instead, you taught us. You showed us that we had become weak in our strength, blind in our knowledge, vulnerable in our power. Jiho felt the weight of those words. Sir, we only showed you what worked for us. Different circumstances, different solutions. Different circumstances that made you stronger, Thexal replied. Earth had no allies. No advanced technology to trade. No easy path to the stars. You survived through determination and skill alone. That shaped your species in ways we are only beginning to understand. A message notification appeared on Jiho's desk display. It was from Earth Command. He opened it and read quickly. His expression changed. Sir, Earth is sending 12 more instructor teams. They will arrive next month. Each team specializes in different combat environments. Urban warfare, jungle operations, Arctic conditions, desert tactics. Earth Command says the Galactic Council specifically requested this. Thexal smiled. Yes, I made that request personally. The Council approved it unanimously. Every species wants human instructors now. Your success here has spread throughout the galaxy. Other military academies are requesting Earth-send trainers. Research institutions want to study human combat psychology. Even civilian organizations are interested in your survival training methods. Jiho sat back, trying to process this information. 3 months ago, they had been mocked for their primitive weapons. Now the entire galaxy wanted to learn from Earth. It seemed impossible. There is something else, Thexal said. Several species have begun developing their own versions of ballistic weapons. Not to replace energy weapons, but to supplement them. The Krellians are particularly interested. Vextor has been corresponding with his homeworld's military about integrating kinetic weapons into their arsenal. That made Jiho smile. Vextor is a good student. He understands the value of having multiple options. He learned that from you, Thexal said. Adaptability, using whatever works. Not being bound by tradition or pride. These are human traits that others are beginning to emulate. Later that evening, the 4 original human cadets gathered in their quarters for what had become a weekly tradition. They cleaned their weapons together, talking about the week's events. It was a ritual that connected them to their roots, a reminder of where they came from. Nari worked on her rifle with practiced efficiency. I received a message from home today. My old unit wants me to record training videos for them. They say my techniques are being studied throughout Earth's military. Taehyung grinned. You are famous now. Nari Song, the sniper who taught aliens how to shoot. We are all famous, Jiwon said quietly. My family sent me news reports. Earth is celebrating us as heroes. They say we proved humanity belongs in the stars. Jiho finished reassembling his rifle and set it aside. We did not do anything heroic. We just did our jobs. Maybe that is the point, Nari suggested. We showed them that doing your job well, mastering your skills completely, being reliable and professional, maybe that is heroic in its own way. A knock at the door. Vextor entered, ducking slightly to fit his large frame through the doorway. His forearms carried drinks from the commissary. I bring refreshments, he announced. And news. The Krellian Empire has officially requested an exchange program with Earth. We want to send warriors to train on your homeworld and receive Earth instructors on ours. My government says that any species that could develop such effective combat skills in isolation must have valuable knowledge. Lyrix floated in behind him, followed by Brax. The small human quarters suddenly felt crowded, but no one minded. These aliens who had mocked them 3 months ago were now their closest friends. I have similar news, Lyrix said. The Etherian Council has approved a cultural exchange. We want to understand how humans developed such mental calculation abilities without technological enhancement. Your brains are fascinating. Brax rumbled with laughter. And Urgoth wants to buy human explosives. We tested them against our shields. They work perfectly. We have been building bigger shields to stop bigger energy weapons for centuries. We never considered that something so simple could bypass them all. They talked late into the night, sharing stories and planning future training operations. The conversation drifted to what might come next: joint human-alien military units, combined research programs, cultural exchanges, trade agreements. Humanity was integrating into galactic society faster than anyone had predicted. As the others left, Vextor paused at the door. "Jiho, I want to thank you. When you first arrived, I mocked your weapons and your abilities. I was arrogant. I thought power and technology were everything. You taught me that skill and dedication matter more. You made me a better warrior." Jiho stood and clasped Vextor's hand. The Krellian's grip was strong enough to crush stone, but he held back, careful not to hurt his human friend. "You honored us by being willing to learn. That takes more strength than any physical power." After everyone left, Jiho stood at the window of his quarters. Vexor Prime stretched out below, a military moon that had trained warriors for thousands of years. Somewhere down there, human weapons were being studied. Human tactics were being practiced. Human instructors were teaching skills that Earth had developed through millennia of conflict. His rifle rested against the wall, the same weapon they had called a toy, the same weapon that had changed everything. It was still simple, still mechanical, still dependent on chemical reactions to throw metal downrange, but in trained hands it was enough. Humanity had joined the galactic community as the youngest species, the weakest military, the least advanced technology, but they brought something the galaxy had forgotten: the understanding that tools do not make the warrior makes the tools. That mastery comes from dedication, not dependency on technology. That sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. A message appeared on his display. It was from Commandant Thexal, brief and formal. "Report to main office at 0800, Galactic Council representatives arriving for inspection. They want to meet the humans who changed military training across the galaxy." Jiho smiled. The journey was far from over. Earth had proven itself on the range. Now it was time to prove itself on a larger stage, but he was not worried. His team had faced mockery and doubt before. They had answered with skill and professionalism. They would do so again,